Hello, it's the Friday Talkie, and it is still Friday, though whether it will still be Friday by the time I get this uploaded, who knows. What have I got to talk about today? I've been struggling, but I've come up with a couple of things. I did a bit of shopping, well, eBaying, this week. Many of you will know I don't really like the NES, but you will also know I've got a bit of a thing for Famiclones, partly because, as the past couple of videos I've put up show, some games are just so crap that they're great, and sometimes the hardware they're played on is so crap that it's great. And I've always been kind of interested in the Famicom itself. There are various reasons why I'm not a fan of the NES, and I've talked about it at length in the past, and I've got a video specifically explaining why, and if you really want to know why and don't know, go watch that. But I've always been a bit curious about the Famicom. To me, the NES is hugely ugly, but the Famicom is kind of cool looking. And, well, they're not easy to come by in the UK, and no, I haven't got one, but I've got this. Doesn't that sound familiar? I got this. A Scorpion 8, which, to all intents and purposes, is a Famicom. I saw a thing called a Scorpion 16 something like 15 years ago, which was a cheap knockoff Mega Drive 3, but I've never seen one of these before, and it's got all, you know, it's got your joypads that fit on the side and look very much like a Famicom joypad, except that you've got the extra buttons at the top there, turbo buttons. But I like this. It's a sensible size, where the NES is a humongous, great, big, stupid, ugly, grey breeze block of a thing that's just full of fresh air. This thing is a sensible size. It's got a flap for your cartridge slot, so it doesn't fill with dust. This thing here, I don't know about that. I mean, you're meant to push that and it'll pop your cartridges out, kind of like they did on the SNES. I won't be making any use of that. Reset button there, power thing there. It's, I mean, in terms of looks, I've read some things about these, and people complain that it's just ugly and lazy, and if they're going to make a Famiclone, why not improve on the original design, or at least make it pretty. But I actually like the way this looks. It's like the original Famicom in that red and white. It looks like a kid's toy, where this thing looks kind of a bit mean, or at the very least like a military tape recorder or something. I don't know. It's a bit moody, and I like that. Not too sure about the games yet, because the only thing I've been able to run in it was that 99 in 1 thing that comes in that other Famiclone I've got. So obviously I could have gone and bought loads of Famicom games anyway and played them, but I just thought that thing looks cool, and I'm gonna look and see what kind of Famiclone games I can get on eBay. There is one guy who's selling loads and loads and loads of them, but they're all buy it now, so I'm like, I don't know about that. But we'll see. There does look to be some interesting stuff out there, and I must admit I'm kind of interested to try some of these weird and wacky Chinese, Japanese games that just didn't turn up on the NES. That could be interesting. So that's that. How long has that been? Couple of minutes? I really, having done so many really long talkies, this one is going to be short because I really ain't got a lot to talk about. I'll tell you what, I have been on, I mean, I buy all these retro consoles and things when I've got the money, which is very rare. I mean, that thing cost me £8. You know, I keep seeing vintage computers and consoles and thinking, oh, I'd love that, and they're hundreds of quid, because like I've got all the common stuff now mostly, and the stuff that I want is rare and expensive, so very little is getting added to my collection except cheap knockoff systems. But I've also I'm on a nostalgia thing, that or it's a midlife crisis, I don't know. Toys that I had as a kid, and if you watch my Benway's World channel, you'll be aware of these crazy dragsters or Mattel Zowie things that I showed on there. I got something else recently. Actually, I've got a couple of things recently. Something here that is, well, something for me and something for someone else, because these are a present for someone because they had them when they were a kid, and I saw them and thought of that person. I'm not going to say who, just in case they're watching. Probably aren't. Weebles. Yeah, I know someone who had those in the 70s and these particular designs, so I saw them knocking around on eBay and I was like, yeah, I know someone who needs some of them. I'll probably open them up and go, what the hell do I want these for? But, whatever. And this little thing, I had one of these when I was a kid. Will the camera focus on it? Almost certainly won't. I had one of these. It's by Matchbox. It's a little trike chopper called a Stingaroo. I had one of these when I was 6 or 7, something like that, and I loved it. God knows what happened to it. I think my brother chewed the horse's head off the back. He was a bastard. Anything I had that he didn't have, he would knacker it. He would wreck it, break it, whatever he could. Probably still would now. He's an arsehole. He's also in prison. Ha! Bloody serves him right. Okay. I should probably edit that bit out. Now, my, I guess, main topic, because I really didn't know what to talk about today. It kind of crossed my mind while I've been looking at this, God, I can't even remember what it's called. There's a Chinese handheld portable console thing that's based on the Android system. It's not like a JXD S7100 thing, I don't know. But Blunty just did a review of it a few days ago, if you know who Blunty is. Australian gadget reviewer. And it's basically, it's like a Android version of an iPad, but dedicated to gaming, and it's got actually D-pads for controls and an analog nub and stuff. Everything that would make the iPad a fantastic gaming system. Take an iPad, stick controllers on it, perfect. Well, there's this Chinese one using the Android system. It's flawed, it's very flawed. But if some companies could look at that and say, wow, that's a good idea, and improve on it, that would be very cool. But it got me thinking about the one aspect of it, because I kind of see if there's a backlash against the way the big companies are going in terms of their register this and restricted that and God knows whatever else, and independent hardware manufacturers and software developers kind of go and decide, sod the big boys, we're going to do our own thing. That seems to me to be the way things are going to go. Now, probably the biggest issue I have with it, and it's probably going to be inevitably in the end, is that the software on it is download. There's no hardware format. And this is what it got me thinking about software formats and what are my favourite software formats. Because I loathe the whole download only thing so much. I have got downloaded software. I've got downloaded software on my PSPs, I've got it on my PS3, I've got it on my PC, and I do see the benefits. You don't have to go to the shop, you just click a button, wait a little while, and hey presto, you've got a game. And that is good. I understand why it's popular. It's just, as a collector, it's rubbish, you know. It's like you haven't got it. You can play the game, but you haven't got it. You don't own it, or something like that. It's just not there. Unless you can turn your console on, there's nothing to say you've got it. And it got me thinking about what is my favourite format. And I sort of had a look at some of the things that I've got. you have got your optical media, and I mean we'll use the CD as an example. I mean I'm totally, I don't need to tell you all of this. I just thought I'd stick them in front of the camera anyway. PS1 CDs, I actually really like these because they're black. I mean, that's just cool, isn't it? When they first came out, I thought, wow, how does that work? It's not shiny and silver. And the thing about whether I like a media format or not isn't just how effectively it works at getting the game onto the console, and these are alright, but it's also how they're packaged. And I do like the size of a CD package. You can have a load of these and they take up an amount of space, but not too much. DVDs and Blu-rays take up more, and when space is at a premium, that can be a problem. But on the downside, the cases of these things are so bloody fragile that when you find them second-hand, they're almost always knackered. The other downside with these, that stops them being my favourite, is they get scratched to hell because people don't look after them. I bought this second-hand, and I've seen them in worse shape, but it's pretty rough. And that's off-putting. Now, believe it or not, I prefer that this, and Tony, yes, that's your game. Electric Adventures programmed this. Tape, audio cassette. I like audio cassettes. There are lots of downsides to it. The tapes can get chewed up, they can run tight so they won't run at the right speed. They can suffer dropout where the magnetic particles are all coming off the thing and it loses audio quality. Lots of things can go wrong with these to stop them loading. But if they're stored properly and looked after, I have found them to be more reliable than floppy disks. My first floppy based computer was an Amiga. It was an Amiga 600, and after using an Acorn Electron, which was cassette tape based, it was a revelation. The speed of it, it was fantastic. You know, 30 seconds to load a game, perhaps, something like that, compared to 10 minutes. It was incredible. But here we are 20 years later. These things will load now vastly more reliably than these. I look after my software for the most part. I do still have all the original boxes for all my games, but I don't have the manuals, and I don't have the discs in the boxes. I put them into your big stacking floppy disk boxes. I can't remember what you'd call them. Kind of a floppy case thing. You're meant to bung all your floppies in them. So they would rattle around a little bit, but they were reasonably well looked after. And after however long it's been, a large proportion of them don't work anymore. Where a much larger proportion of the games I've got on tape do still work. So yeah, give me tape over floppy if I'm doing a bit of retro gaming. It quite surprised me how unreliable the floppies turned out to be, and that is just the 3.5 inch ones. I've never even tried one of your 5-point-what's-it size ones. I can't imagine what it's like, what they're like reliability wise. I imagine they would be worse, but I could be wrong. So then we come to solid state stuff, and you got some options there. I mean, your most modern kind of thing would be that for your well, that's for the DS Lite, whatever. I don't actually know what they look like for the 3DS. And you've got assorted different, that kind of thing on the PS Vita. I don't know, they've got some funny little stick shaped thing. Proprietary, small. Impressive that they can fit a big complex game onto a tiny little card. That is impressive, except that the little card is so damn small that if you leave it out of your console and out of your case, you're going to lose it, which means you've got to carry that around or stack these up, which is about the same as stacking up CDs, so it's not too bad. But I don't like my solid state media to be so small that I might lose it in my pocket. That bugs me. I think probably the smallest, the smallest solid state thing I've got that I think is acceptable is that. And what the hell is that, you might ask? Focus. There. Gamecom. God awful piece of crap handheld system, but I like the size of the cartridge. It's small enough that you can chuck a load of them in your pocket, but big enough that you're not going to lose it too easily. And I mean, Game Boy cartridges I think they're a good size as well. The Game Boy Advance cartridges I find a little bit more, even though they're smaller, they're kind of awkward and they're not easy to stack. I mean, it's all not necessarily even rational, logical thinking here. I mean, it is all about personal preference. Hue cards, I think, are cool. They're way cool. The only downside is lack of storage on them. Like R-Type, they had to fit onto 2 different cards, which is a shame. I do like these, though I mean I've got something similar, a couple of games on the Master System on their little card style format, and they were awful, really awful. When it comes down to it, my absolute favourite, and this is going to be predictable because, well, it just is. I like cartridges the best. I won't say throw the box away, but I'll stick the box somewhere like in the loft because they just take up a bit more space. My favourite cartridge shape. That. Something about it. It's the Atari 2600 cartridge. Maybe it's just because it was the first removable, interchangeable game format that I ever experienced. I don't know if that's the reason for it. This to me is the perfect way to store a game. The perfect object for a game to be on. Okay, yeah, you can't, you got about 4K worth of game on here. But I mean, as an actual physical object to have a game on it, I love this. It's just the right size. Chuck the box away or chuck it in the loft, stack these up, and you can stack lots of them in a not very big space. There'll be people who are horrified at my suggestion of like lob the box away, but nah. I just don't care about the boxes. Stick them in the loft. Don't throw them away, but get them out of the way because they crumple, they get knackered. Put them somewhere for safekeeping. But if you're going to play your games, these are fantastic. Closely followed by that. It's kind of a weird thing in that the curves on the edges make them look nice, but also detract from their visual purity somehow when compared to that. That's a little square brick of a game. That's a little bit fancy, but it's still bloody brilliant and way, way, way better to my mind than, say, N64 cartridges piss me off. They really do. And I'm not really big on the SNES ones either. Something about Nintendo cartridges really bugs me. It's like they don't want you to stack them. Or if you do stack them, they don't want you to know what your game is. Can't really explain what it is. But that is such a nice, compact, but not too small. And the fact that it's black helps. No logic in my thinking whatsoever. It's purely what they look like, what they feel like, and that is just similar enough to that. That's just perfect. All games, if it were a perfect world, if it were my perfect world, all games would come on an Atari cartridge. It would just have a lot more storage capacity than it does. Yeah, so what's your favourite storage format thing for your games? treat it as a tag if you want to. Video responses are always welcome. Yeah, that's really all I've got to talk about today. Let me get them out of the way. I am going to swing the camera around. I have sort of got a shout out, sort of. It's not actually for a channel. Okay, I got a message a few nights ago by a subscriber and fairly regular commenter called MrDebauch, who's got a band called the Debauch Sophisticates. It's him and a mate and occasionally another mate, I think. And they've done an album. This isn't actually shouting out his channel, though that's his channel, you can see there. But he just done an album and wondered if I would like to have a listen, and pointed me at this URL, which I will link to down there. He's got a CD that is for sale, but you can listen to the album here on this page. There are the links there. And so I thought, cool. I actually get quite a lot of people, mostly who I don't know, saying, hey, listen to my music. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know who you are, piss off. I'm not actually that blunt, I just don't bother to get back to them. But I thought, no, I recognise this guy's name, I know he's commented. I don't know a lot about him, but I know he's been watching my stuff for a while, so I'm gonna go and check out his stuff. And it's inspired by game music. I mean, there's a title there, Ode to Toe Jam and Earl. And I thought I'll have a listen. This isn't going to interest everyone, but if you're into electronic music that sounds like the old analog stuff that you got in the 80s and 90s, you will love this. It's produced digitally, but to listen to it you wouldn't know it. I'm not going to play any here because YouTube is completely arsish about copyright, and any music I put on here that isn't my own, they give me a hard time. So, all I can say is I thought it was fantastic. It's entirely instrumental. Quite varied. The feel of the tunes is varied. You've got some that are quite groovy, some that are quite chilled, some that are really, really just... they kick you in the head with their awesomeness. That's the only way I can describe it. It's just great stuff, and if you're remotely into kind of retro-ish, game-related, though it's not like it's not in any way like chip tunes. This is proper synth and sequenced sounding stuff. I'm trying to think who you could compare it to. There were moments I thought of Crystal Method, which is great because I love Crystal Method. There are hints of other, like, Newman kind of sounds, if not the feel. It's just... yeah, check it out. It is how the hell do you pronounce that? Ice Cave Behemoths. That may or may not be how you meant to pronounce that third word. I look at it and I remember when I was a kid I came across that and I was like, Behemoths. Nah, it's got to be Behemoths, probably. Yeah, it's a weird word. It's great though. Go along, check it out. Yeah. I'm going to turn the camera around now. Alright, this is where I show you how well prepared I am and how I've got no bloody idea for this Friday talk. I've got no closing comments to speak of that I didn't say in the last one. All the things that I said I would do and didn't. I did do some of the Famiclone games, yes. There's going to be some more of them. I said I was going to do a collection video and I didn't because I've been waiting. I have been waiting for that Famiclone to arrive, and now it's arrived. I can get on with it. Get on with it, yes. I need to. That's about all I've got to tell you. Rambling and disorganised, completely off the wall. I mean, I spent all day today just... Actually, I haven't spent all day today. I had to go and... I was in the hospital this morning. I've got a hole in my arm there. They stuck a needle in me and drained my blood. Got to go for an ECG on Monday, I think it is, and then I'm going for a chest x-ray. You go to your doctor, you got one little pain and he's like, right, blood test, ECG, chest x-ray, let's give you a full bloody blah. Yeah. There's nothing wrong, I'm not going to die. He's just being cautious, I think, but that's fine. It's nice here, isn't it? I'm trying to think of other things I could tell you. I've got nothing. So, thank you for watching.